Barbara Stanwyck's Lily powers didn't just climb the corporate ladder in 1933's Babyface. She seduced her way up every rung, one executive at a time. Premiering in New York on July 1st, the film delivered a jolt of sexual candor that left audiences stunned and censors scrambling. What made this pre-code firecracker even more provocative? The screenplay, primarily penned by Catherine Scola and Darrell F. Zanuck under the pseudonym Mark Canfield, embedded Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy directly into the plot. Lily's mentor literally hands her Nietzsche's writings, urging her to use men as stepping stones, turning her romantic entanglements into a manifesto of ruthless self-empowerment. The New York State Censorship Board rejected the film outright, forcing Warner Brothers to rework scenes, soften dialogue, and reshoot entire sequences. Even the toned-down version retained enough edge to shock Depression-era audiences while raking in profits. Rumors swirled for decades about a more explicit original cut. That speculation proved true when film archivists uncovered a longer, uncensored version in the 1990s. The restored footage revealed Lily's manipulations in stark detail, confirming that pre-code Hollywood was far bolder than many realized. Stanwyck's fearless performance is now considered groundbreaking, with critics crediting her portrayal of moral complexity as a turning point for female characters in cinema. Jean Harlow burst onto screens in 1932 with a performance that made moral watchdogs sweat and audiences lean in. Redheaded Woman wasn't just a film, it was a full frontal assault on social norms, delivered with a smirk and a platinum blonde punch. Anita Luce's script was so audacious that the Hays office demanded multiple rewrites before reluctantly approving it. Even after edits, the film's boldness remained intact. Harlow's Lil Andrews wasn't the typical damsel. She was a cunning secretary who used her sexuality like a chessboard, maneuvering through high society with unapologetic ambition. Scenes of her undressing and manipulating wealthy married men left audiences both shocked and fascinated. Harlow's off-screen reputation, marked by turbulent relationships and whispered scandals, only amplified the film's notoriety. Some believe MGM leaned into her real-life image to boost the film's allure. The backlash was fierce. The United Kingdom banned the film, and several U.S. cities imposed heavy censorship, but controversy only fueled its popularity. Audiences flocked to see a woman who broke the rules and got away with it. Redheaded Woman didn't just challenge censorship, it redefined the leading lady, proving that audiences were ready for characters who reflected real, messy human desires. When the story of Temple Drake premiered in May 1933, it didn't just test limits, it shattered them. Adapted from William Faulkner's infamous novel Sanctuary, the film tackled themes Hollywood had long avoided: sexual violence, moral ambiguity, and societal decay. Miriam Hopkins portrayed Temple Drake, a character whose victimization and morally complex decisions left audiences rattled. Her performance blurred the lines between innocence and complicity, sparking fierce debate. Paramount knew the film was incendiary, but gambled on its shock value. The risk paid off, financially at least. While many theaters refused to screen it and several states banned it, the controversy drew crowds eager to see what the fuss was about. The film became a rallying point for conservative groups, including the newly formed Catholic Legion of Decency, who cited it as evidence that Hollywood needed stricter oversight. Rather than rehashing the Hays Code's origins, it's worth noting that Temple Drake's release directly influenced the code's enforcement. Its raw content became a symbol of how far Hollywood had strayed from traditional values, accelerating the push for regulation. Today, the film is recognized as a landmark of pre-code cinema, remembered for its daring subject matter and Hopkins' fearless performance. In 1933, Mae West sauntered onto the silver screen with a confidence that rattled censors and thrilled audiences. She'd Done Him Wrong wasn't just a movie, it was a declaration of independence, delivered with a wink and a razor-sharp quip. Adapted from West's own scandalous stage play, Diamond Lil, the film retained its provocative edge thanks to West's hands-on involvement. She worked closely with screenwriters Harvey F. Thew and John Bright to preserve every innuendo and sultry glance. When West famously purred to Cary Grant, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" She wasn't just flirting, she was rewriting the rules of female sexuality on screen. Though the Hays office pushed for changes, Paramount stood firm, betting that West's charisma would outweigh the controversy. They were right. The film grossed over $3 million worldwide, rescuing the studio from financial peril. Rather than re-explaining the Hays Code, it's worth noting that West's success reportedly alarmed moral crusaders so much that it hastened the code's strict enforcement. West's unapologetic portrayal of a sexually empowered woman proved that audiences were ready for bold, adult storytelling, and that scandal could be cinematic gold. When MGM released Tarzan and His Mate in 1934, they had no idea they were about to ignite one of Hollywood's most talked about controversies. The sequel to Tarzan the Ape Man featured a nude swimming scene with Maureen O'Sullivan's Jane that left audiences stunned. Though O'Sullivan wore a flesh-tone bodysuit, the illusion of nudity was so convincing that it sparked outrage. The underwater sequence, lasting nearly 2 minutes, became a lightning rod for debate. Some hailed it as artistic, others decried it as indecent. Rather than revisiting the Hays Code's enforcement, it's important to note that this film was released just before the crackdown began in July 1934, making it one of the last to slip through with such daring content. Religious leaders condemned it, censorship boards demanded edits, and later re-releases removed the scene entirely. Yet the controversy only boosted its popularity. Johnny Weissmuller and O'Sullivan became icons, and the film's sensuality drew massive crowds. Rumors persist that the original negative was destroyed to prevent future screenings. Fortunately, surviving prints allowed preservationists to restore the scene for modern audiences, offering a glimpse into a time when Hollywood still dared to provoke. Paramount Pictures detonated a cinematic firecracker in 1934 with Murder at the Vanities, a film that fused murder mystery with musical spectacle while obliterating what little remained of Hollywood's moral restraint. This wasn't just another pre-code experiment, it was a deliberate provocation. The film's notorious Sweet Marijuana musical number became legendary among film scholars, featuring chorus girls in costumes so minimal they barely qualified as clothing. Paramount's designers pushed the envelope with outfits that left little to the imagination, while dancers performed routines celebrating substance that would send modern censors into a frenzy. These nearly nude performers weren't just background, they were the film's main attraction, moving through scenes that left conservative viewers reeling. Censorship boards across the country erupted, with some cities banning the film outright and others demanding heavy edits. The Catholic Legion of Decency condemned it as a threat to public virtue. Yet, as was often the case during this era, the uproar only drew larger crowds eager to see what all the fuss was about. Paramount reportedly rushed the film into production, anticipating the looming crackdown. With its blend of risque content and sensationalism, Murder at the Vanities became a lightning rod for reformers. Just months later, the Production Code Administration began strict enforcement on July 1, 1934, making this film one of the last and loudest gasps of Hollywood's wild pre-code era. On November 10, 1931, Frederick March made history by winning the Academy Award for Best Actor for his dual role in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. His transformation from refined doctor to monstrous alter ego stunned audiences and critics alike. The film's groundbreaking makeup and lighting effects created a metamorphosis so convincing that some viewers reportedly looked away in horror. March's performance was matched by Miriam Hopkins as Ivy Pearson, a character strongly implied to be a sex worker, a detail that drew immediate backlash. Rather than repeating the Hays Code's influence, it's worth noting that this film's explicit themes, addiction, lust, and psychological decay, became prime targets for censorship once the code was enforced. Up to 20 minutes of footage may have been cut from later versions, though exact figures remain debated. Still, the film's legacy endures. It proved that horror could explore adult themes with intelligence and artistry, paving the way for future psychological thrillers. Released on February 11, 1933, Employee's Entrance delivered a brutal portrayal of corporate exploitation. Warren Williams' Kurt Anderson wasn't just a villain, he was a chilling embodiment of unchecked power. Anderson used his position as a department store manager to manipulate and exploit female employees, with Loretta Young's Madeline serving as the emotional anchor of the story. Her descent from hopeful worker to discarded victim highlighted the grim realities of workplace harassment. The film's refusal to punish Anderson for his actions defied the moral expectations that would soon become mandatory under the production code. Rather than revisiting the code's enforcement, it's more telling to consider how this film's unapologetic realism made it a lightning rod for reformers demanding change. Some believe the story was inspired by real-life scandals, though no direct sources were confirmed. Regardless, the film's success proved that audiences were ready to confront uncomfortable truths on screen. By 1932, Clara Bow's career was on the brink. Then came Call Her Savage, a film so daring it either had to revive her stardom or end it for good. Bow played NASA Springer, a character whose journey included implied lesbian relationships, a brutal whipping scene, and themes of interracial relationships, all of which pushed the envelope. It's worth to note how much of the film's provocative content survived the censors. Despite demands for cuts, the final version remained shockingly raw. Bow's performance was electric, channeling her personal struggles into a role that felt painfully authentic. Critics praised her comeback, and audiences packed theaters, even as moral crusaders condemned the film. Call Her Savage stands as a bold testament to a time when Hollywood still dared to challenge societal norms, and when one actress's desperation became cinematic defiance. April 23, 1931 marked a seismic shift in American cinema when Warner Bros. Unleashed The Public Enemy onto unsuspecting audiences during its New York premiere. This wasn't just another crime picture. It was a brutal manifesto that shattered Hollywood's genteel facade and introduced moviegoers to a new breed of anti-hero who didn't apologize for his violence. James Cagney's Tom Powers became the prototype for every gangster who followed, but it was one particular breakfast scene that cemented the film's rebellious legacy, the infamous grapefruit to the face moment, where Cagney's character assaults his girlfriend with citrus fruit, wasn't just shocking, it was groundbreaking. May Clark's genuine surprise during filming created an authentically jarring moment that audiences had never witnessed on screen before. The film's raw portrayal of bootlegging and organized crime during Prohibition struck a nerve with moral watchdogs across the country. Cities like Chicago and Kansas City banned the film or demanded edits to scenes involving machine guns and criminal success. Ironically, the controversy only heightened public interest, turning The Public Enemy into a box office juggernaut that reportedly earned nearly $1 million, a staggering figure for 1931. Warner Bros. Had inadvertently sparked a trend. The film's success inspired a wave of gangster pictures, each more daring than the last. Studios realized that controversy could be profitable, leading to increasingly provocative content that would eventually prompt stricter industry oversight. The Public Enemy, along with Little Caesar and Scarface, is often cited as a key catalyst for the eventual tightening of Hollywood's moral guidelines. In August 1931, Warner Bros. Released Night Nurse, a film that dared to expose the rot beneath society's polished surface. Barbara Stanwyck starred as Laura Hart, a nurse who uncovers a sinister plot to let children die for inheritance money. Stanwyck's appearance in revealing undergarments was bold for the time, but the real shock came from the film's dark storyline. Clark Gable, in a rare villainous role, played the menacing chauffeur Nick, whose cruelty added a chilling layer to the narrative. Director William Wellman blended sex, suspense, and social critique into a potent mix. The film tackled hospital corruption and celebrated female resilience, all while challenging the notion that wealth equaled virtue. Night Nurse exemplified the kind of storytelling that would soon be silenced. Stories where women fought back and villains didn't always get punished. Despite censorship cuts in some regions, the film's core message remained intact. Night Nurse proved that audiences were ready for gritty realism and complex characters, even if the industry wasn't. In 1932, Scarface detonated like a cinematic missile. Paul Muni's portrayal of Tony Camonte, a ruthless, charismatic gangster, blurred the line between villain and anti-hero, leaving audiences both horrified and captivated. Director Howard Hawks didn't hold back. The film's most controversial element was the unsettling relationship between Tony and his sister Cheska, played by Anne Dvorak. Their scenes were laced with possessiveness and tension that pushed the envelope of acceptable storytelling. Censors delayed the film's release for over a year, demanding a moralizing introduction and a revised ending where Tony faced justice. While earlier sections have covered censorship battles, Scarface stands out for the sheer scale of its resistance and the cultural panic it provoked. Despite or because of the controversy, the film became a defining work of pre-code cinema, showing that audiences were ready for stories that reflected the darker sides of ambition and power. When Island of Lost Souls hit theaters in December 1932, audiences weren't prepared for the twisted vision Paramount had conjured. This adaptation of H.G. Wells' The Island of Dr. Moreau didn't just push boundaries, it bulldozed them, delivering a disturbing blend of science fiction and taboo desire that left censors scrambling. Charles Laughton's portrayal of Dr. Moreau was chilling, not just for his mad science, but for the unsettling sensuality he brought to the role. His slow, deliberate speech and predatory demeanor suggested appetites far beyond scientific curiosity. Laughton's Moreau didn't merely create beastmen, he seemed to savor every grotesque moment. The film's most provocative creation was Kathleen Burke's Panther Woman, a character who embodied animalistic allure. Her feline movements and primal instincts weren't subtle, they directly challenged the era's moral standards. The implied attraction between her and the human protagonist crossed lines few films dared approach. British censors banned the film outright, citing its grotesque vivisection scenes and the themes of interspecies desire. The ban lasted until 1958, turning the film into a cult object of fascination. While earlier sections have discussed the Hays Code's eventual enforcement, here the film's legacy lies in how it exemplified the kind of content that made stricter regulations seem inevitable. Today, Island of Lost Souls is revered by horror aficionados for its eerie atmosphere and fearless exploration of humanity's darker instincts. In 1933, Ernst Lubitsch delivered a romantic comedy that dared to challenge every conventional notion of love and morality. Designed for Living starred Miriam Hopkins, Gary Cooper, and Frederick March in a story that placed a consensual romantic triangle at its core, an idea that would make future censors wince. Loosely adapted from Noel Coward's provocative stage play, the film followed Gilda, an illustrator torn between two best friends, Tom, a playwright, and George, a painter. What set this apart from typical love triangles was its refusal to resolve into a traditional pairing. Instead, the characters openly acknowledged their shared affection, choosing companionship over conformity. Censors objected not only to the sexual implications, but to the film's refusal to punish its characters for their unconventional choices. However, as previously noted, the Hays Code lacked enforcement power until mid-1934, allowing Lubitsch to slip this daring narrative past the gatekeepers. Lubitsch's signature wit and suggestive dialogue masked the film's radical message in charm and sophistication. Lines like, "Let's be sensible, let's be modern," became coded declarations of sexual freedom. Urban audiences embraced the film, drawn to its adult themes and refusal to moralize. Designed for Living remains a landmark of pre-code cinema, a bold, witty exploration of love without judgment, and a testament to Ernst's genius in navigating the boundaries of what Hollywood could show. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.